Okay, hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. So this is just going to be pretty much talking about the point of no return. This is like the final part 3 of this. I might be a little distracted just because one of my friends keeps messaging me right now where we're talking about like Zelda games and stuff. So if I have to like pause this every once in a while, sorry about that. I also need to pull up the musical again because you bet I gotta talk about those facial expressions and stuff. I should have actually done that before let me pause this really quick. Sorry, I thought I was ready and I'm like, wait, no. Okay, so I pulled up the musical, so that's good. I feel bad because like this is a perfect time for me to record and I'm excited, and I was actually literally just kind of rewatching a little bit of the song for the point of no return that I'm going to talk about. But my friend is still messaging me on Discord, sending me like a crazy amount of information, so sorry if this is a little like not super smooth. Okay, so it is so nice to get like the full context and stuff for like what the Phantom's Opera is about, because I feel like with the movie it didn't really come clear across and I just felt kind of like confused and stuff, especially because but before I watched this performance I actually saw a clip of it as like a YouTube short, and because the costume between like for the Phantom for the movie and for the stage musical is completely different, and it was this part in the YouTube short where he's in this like black cloak and his hands are shaking, and then Christine grabs his hands and is kind of leading him along, and I'm like, what the hell is the context of this? Like, it was cool and stuff, and I was wondering like, why is he in this cloak? How does it relate to the opera and stuff? I think just because with the movie it's like this really sexual scene. I mean, in both versions it's like a really sexual scene where Christine the Phantom have these like matching kind of red costumes where she has like this big flower in her hair and stuff, and he has this like little black mask so you can like actually see his face and everything and see like his facial reactions to stuff, and there's all this fire around them, you know, and the Phantom's kind of leading her around and kind of the one in control for the whole thing. And then there's also these like background dancers you see. It kind of gives this like sexual tango sort of vibe where it's like the Phantom sort of just caught her now, but Christine's kind of into it. And in this it's like completely different actually. Hold on. Okay, I can talk now. I do want to eat lunch soon, but I kind of somewhat lied a little to my friend, like, hey, I'm gonna have to eat lunch and I won't be able to talk, but it's just mostly because I want to get through this dang recording and stuff before I actually do want to eat at some point. Okay, so so part of the plot of the Phantom's Opera, and you do actually get to see it performed before he shows up, like he kills the guy that's supposed to be there, and then, you know, the song of the point of no return finally starts with him and Christine. So it's basically that the character the Phantom has to like trade places with a different character. So, and he has to have dinner with Christine's character and is trying to like lure her in and stuff, and that's the freaking reason why he has to wear a cloak to disguise himself. I'm so glad to know it's like part of that in-universe story, because I thought like, okay, the Phantom's wearing this cloak probably just to like disguise himself and disguise himself and get to be on stage with Christine and stuff. But I'm glad it's like part of the in-universe storyline and stuff, and it works and it's interesting. Like, I remember I was at first disappointed where I'm like, damn, this is like the most sexually charged scene in the whole musical and the only thing you get to see is his hands. But it, like, I would like to see his facial expressions with some of it, but I mean that is supposed to be the point, because Christine eventually removes his hood and then the Phantom is there and he's shocked, and she, you know, it's basically like her betraying him, because then he realizes like, oh, you know, the soldiers are there, there's guns, he kind of can't escape or anything. but it's still somehow just as sexually charged. It's really interesting where it's like you can see his hands, but even with just that, you can still, and it like his little movements of things of under the hood, you still kind of can sort of get what he's feeling. But it also is kind of interesting because there's a part where Christine kind of takes the lead, and throughout the whole song, she's the one, she's like, the best way I can say it is like really horny throughout like the whole song, but not because it's her as Christine. I mean, maybe a little bit, but like that's the character she's playing, and it's so wild to see because she's playing this like incredibly flirty and confident character, even like taking the lead romantically and stuff. It's only for like a portion of the song, not the whole thing, but even when it's like the Phantom's part, she's like very into it and stuff. It's so interesting to see compared to how she's so kind of like innocent and vulnerable throughout the rest of the musical and stuff, and here it's like a complete opposite thing, but it works and it's really cool, and she's like really getting into this character she's playing, but she remains like that kind of flirty and confidence and whatever, until she realizes that it's the Phantom there and not whoever's supposed to be there, and then she gets immediately out of character and is scared, but like also still kind of into it. Like you can see the exact point when it happens where he's like has his hand over her hand. And it's like, I think the one time he actually like is trying to touch her, because at this point wait, do I have that in my notes? Damn. I think I do. I'm disappointed. Okay, there was a note that I had somewhere where I wanted to talk about how the hand movements and how close Christine the Phantom get throughout the musical like changes throughout it, where at the beginning, like with Music of the Night, they can't really like touch each other, like he's very close to touching her and stuff, and then by this point they're making physical contact, but it's only with their hands really, and then by the end they're finally on like kissing, hugging, like full physical contact terms. There's a lot of camera shots of like the characters' hands and stuff, especially the Phantoms throughout this, which I find really interesting. I think that comes up more later in my notes, but yeah, there's a part where he almost like touches her breast, or I think he does a little bit, or he's like about to, and Christine immediately looks shocked and actually kind of hops out of her seat, and then from there is kind of scared, and the Phantom kind of like takes this lead again of like trying to take her away and such, but then she grabs his hands, or wait, no, hold on. Sorry, I have so many things written down. It's like this wall of text on my phone. I'm trying to like orient myself. But yeah, there's like a part of this where Christine's very flirty, and then the Phantom meanwhile finally gets to touch her, and there's this part I like. It almost reminds me of like, okay, there's this really important part in the 2005 Pride and Prejudice, to the point where you hear people talk about it, even like Letterboxd or whatever, where Mr. Darcy does this little hand movement, like his hand wiggles or something for like a second early on in the movie. It's referred to as like the hand flex or whatever, and it's this little motion that's supposed to, he doesn't say anything but kind of gives away what he's feeling, and there's something like that here a little bit, where there's like a close-up of his hands, and the Phantom's hands are moving up from his lap, and they're like full on shaking, and then Christine grasps them and moves them around and stuff. I don't know if they're like shaking out of like nerves, or it's like the excitement of like, whoa, she's so close to me and is probably going to touch me and stuff. But I find that a really interesting detail. So it basically like goes from them playing their characters, they're supposed to be in this opera, until they're just not. And the lyrics are interesting. I've always liked this song and how it's, it's about that point in the story of like, this is the point of no return, we can't go back from any of this. But then it's also about like them as characters and their like forbidden sexual tension stuff vibe, and this is finally the moment where they can just let that all out. But then it's also matching with the plot of like the Phantom's opera, of like what the scene is supposed to be, of like, oh, I'm tricking you, this is it, we're having this dinner together and stuff. And that never fully came across to me until, you know, I got more of the context from watching the stage version and stuff. And it just adds more meaning, and it's like, it's still kind of sexy, like, even though you're only seeing the Phantom's hands and stuff, because like Christine is giving in to him again. But compared to, like, you can almost compare it to Music of the Night, where she's like, you know, there's some tension there and some physical stuff, but they're not touching each other really, and Christine is kind of more hypnotized by his movements. But here it's like she's finally kind of, there's a word I'm trying to think of, reciprocating those, that feeling from like before and stuff, and she's like giving into it. She's like cool with it, with like the sexual tension and stuff. Now she's like in the moment and everything, and I just love that it's the switch of this kind of like power play dynamic, I don't know if that's the right word for it, where it's like the person who's sort of in control and leading things depends on who's singing, where it starts off where it's the Phantom and then Christine. I wrote in my note like Phantom lead / Christine being horny, and then it goes to Christine lead / Phantom surprised she's actually like touching him and stuff. And it's like the one time where she kind of leads that like tension, and it's like I wish I could see his facial expressions of, like, you can see his head move just a little bit with the hood and stuff, where she's behind him and he kind of leans into her and his hands shaking and stuff. And then it's kind of sad where she gets kind of scared and sad when she has to unmask him before he takes her away, because he like grabs her hands at one point because she I think it was like she's touching him, and then hold on, I have to look back at the thing really. I have to like look directly back at the scene. I think it's where she she puts her arms around him like she's finishing her part, and he's kind of having his hands over her hands, and then she pulls away, and he does this little thing where she gets up and he's kind of has his hands cupped, like almost like a, where did she go, where's her hands, and she gets away to move and she looks scared, and he chases after her and grabs her arm, and then he's kind of like in control again, and they're sort of like almost it's almost the closest they get to having a fight. No, she gets dragged away actually, and she knows that he's gonna take her, so she ends up it's not that she unmasks him, like she doesn't take his mask off, it's just she removes his hood. And it's something I feel mixed on, where you'd think having his face exposed to the crowd when his wig and his mask and everything finally comes off like a little bit later, you think that would be the big thing that he would freak out at more, and that would be what is kind of more time is spent on. And instead it's just in that point he like screams and runs away with her, and that's it. And you don't really get to look at his face, his full face, and it's kind of disappointing, because that's supposed to be like a big shocking moment of like, whoa, we get to fully see his face now and stuff. But I do think it's interesting that the part where she removes his hood, which, you know, that's not in the movie because he's not wearing a hood or anything, so there's kind of just more to it here, where she has this look like she feels guilty, like she doesn't want to do, like you can literally see her eyes dart right before she takes off the hood, like she's deciding like, do I really want to do this? And then she removes the hood and he looks really startled, and then that's when he's kind of the most hurt of like, how can you do this to me, where he ends up walking away from her and then practically proposes to her on stage, where he has the ring out and stuff and slips it on her finger, and you know, she doesn't really know what to do, and then removes his mask and he like takes her for real. and stuff, and he does that like really high pitched scream again whenever he's fully exposed, and then they leave and there's more fire and stuff, and that's kind of about it. They end up going up a staircase, I believe. I almost wish it was like with the movie where, and I get it's like a different layout and they're on a stage, but it could have been kind of cool if it was like a trapdoor situation or something of where in the movie, you know, the Phantom is unmasked and he grabs Christine and they actually jump through a hole, like a little trapdoor thing that has fake fire, and it's such a cool movement of like he's taking her into the fire, they're going down and stuff. But then here it's just that they run up some stairs, but I get like why they have to physically do it, because then they have to go on the area above the stage, the like quote unquote tunnel where she's being dragged through and stuff. And then I forgot that the Phantom even killed a guy to be able to get on stage with Christine. Like, the body is revealed, besides the fact that, again, it's like this goofy looking mannequin thing. But the body's revealed at the end of their song, and then everyone screams. And the ballerina's screaming sounded so real, honestly. And then I remembered, like, oh, yeah, he killed a guy. Like, it was kind of an afterthought because I was so invested in them singing together and stuff. And it's kind of funny because, like, with the movie, you know, it's like a corpse on stage. Like, it's like the actor playing the guy that got killed. And he's there, and you can see, like, his eyes are wide open, and Carlotta goes up to him and mourns him. It's like revealed they were like lovers or whatever, and it's just like a short little bit, like a kind of like a little casualty there, and then, you know, the scene moves on to the Phantom and Christine in the tunnel already. But then here it's like all the ballerinas see the corpse, and they're like everyone's freaking the hell out, and we get like a little more time with it and stuff. And then the lights go dark on them, and then we see Christine and the Phantom. I think it's interesting because, like, we see them go through first, and then Raoul and Madame Giry up there, but it's kind of, like, it all flows together, but it's kind of treated as, like, these separate bits. So he drags her through and stuff. And I always like that part of the point of no... You can, like, divide the point of no return into, like, 3 parts, basically, but it's all still listed, like, on Spotify and YouTube and stuff as, like, this in the recordings is, like, the same song. So I still have to keep calling it the point of no return, but it's, like, multiple different things where it's, like, it's the first song where it's, like, Christine and the Phantom on stage together singing about how, like, the point of no return of, like, our tension. And then there's, like, a little bit where he drags her through the tunnel kind of between the songs, and then it kind of starts again, but this time it's, like, the final thing with, like, him, Raoul, and Christine of, like, this is actually the point of no return, you know, of, like, you have to make your choice, you cannot go back from this. But anyway, I like this, like, in-between bit where they're, like, in the tunnel or whatever. Like, vocally I always think that part sounds cool of, like, down once more to the da-na-na-na-na-na or whatever. And I was kind of a little disappointed because this is the point where he's supposed to, like, be the most stressed or whatever. And I mean, I think it was that way with the movie. I think in the movie it sounds like a little more harsher and stuff. But here, okay, there's a line where he says about, like, dragging, like, we're going deeper into hell, and it's harder for me to take it a little seriously, where I expected the word hell to be, like, in a kind of deeper voice, like, really harsh, you know, especially because I've been mentioning, like, the Phantom here, like, as, like, this very powerful voice and stuff, and I wanted that, like, full impact of it, of, like, we're going into, like, fucking hell or whatever, and instead the word hell is, like, sung as a high note, but it's one of those high notes that's, like, held out really long, and it sounds beautiful, and it, like, completely throws me off of, like, that is the exact opposite, like, it sounds good, but the exact opposite vibe of what I expected. But anyway, then it gets to the part where they're almost through the tunnel, and he's kind of rapidly telling her of, like, how no one was ever kind to him and whatever, and he sounds almost frightened to, like, the point where he's, I noticed he, like, literally almost spits at her as how frazzled he seems, and then he's asking her, like, Christine, why? But I was surprised because he's asking her in, like, his regular voice, to the point where when he's asking her why, it, like, his voice goes like way higher where it's almost comical, but it's also kind of sad because it's like he's again being like really vulnerable and such. And then I'm so happy for then it goes to like, you know, the final part, you know, we're at the very end, there's like 10 minutes left where it's like Christine the Phantom Monroe, and then from there, you know, there's no more scene changes. It's like this is it pretty much. She finally gets her like white fancy dress outfit as like her final outfit, and it looks so good, and it's like the main outfit I associate her with. Like you see in all the pictures in the movie and stuff, and even on the front cover she's in that white dress that's just like her outfit, but then with this musical, like she gets a white dress, you know, early on with like Music of the Night and when she's like originally taken into the lair, but you know, it's over her Hannibal outfit. It doesn't really look too much like a dress. It kind of looks more like a cloak thing, and it's not really as cool. But here she's like fully in that dress because it's supposed to be like the wedding dress, which I always wonder about, you know, because she's on the tunnel with the Phantom and being dragged away, and then the next time you see, I know it's a costume change, but I mean in universe you see her and she's in that wedding dress and the Phantom's grabbing the veil to put on her head, and I'm like, did he force her to change into that or something? Did he like strip her down and put her in that? I don't know, but anyway, the dress looks lovely and it works perfectly for everything, and we get like a great moment at that point where we can finally get a good look at the Phantom's actual appearance, which is great. It's better. It's so much better than the movie, but also not scary. I kind of hoped he'd look a little more gruesome. I mean, definitely with what's going on the side of his head and stuff, that step. And once I realized what I was staring at, I was like, oh shit, okay, that's pretty gruesome. I think just because of the descriptions, you know, the fake descriptions they give of him, of like the yellow parchment for skin and the hole where the nose is supposed to be, I was kind of hoping they'd have something like that a little bit, of just to make him look more disgusting on his face, but his face doesn't. The thing that even kind of bothers me with the nose is like it doesn't really look skeletal. It looks like there's a bunch of just stuff on it. It almost reminds me of like a bird mouth, but I feel like it's probably that way because, you know, the nose, I mean the design of the mask is supposed to go over his nose, so I'm assuming it's probably something to help the mask stay on or whatever, so it doesn't like contour onto like the face. Oh, something about the mask, speaking, I mentioned of like contour and stuff, for some reason the Phantom's mask, you know how it like covers half his face, I finally got like a clear look at it here, and it's, oh wait, shoot, hold on, no, where is it? I scrolled through and it was just yeah, because it just covers like one side of his face, and it has like blush on the side of it for some reason. I don't know why. I think that's interesting. But anyway, the Phantom's actual appearance. So he has this, I like his hair definitely like better more than the movie, where I mentioned it was white, right? It's like this comical looking, like something out of a cartoon character. Like when you have like a crazy old man, like cartoon character is the vibe, where it's this like white tuft of hair that like scatters around. So like dude is like almost like 90% bald and I don't know why that's like funny to me. Hold on. Yeah, and then his hair, it actually, okay, I'm looking better at it. It does kind of cover the back of his head a little bit, but he's clearly like very balding, and his hair is like very like wispy and stuff, so to reveal like, yeah, he really is just this like very old man. And I like how with the makeup and the like the prosthetics on the actor, there's some that's on like the good side of his, you know, the part that's like not supposed to be deformed and stuff that we, you know, that we see for the whole musical, but there's like stuff that's covering his head to like make him look more bald, you know, because they have to like hide his hair. I'm assuming he's not like actually bald, or I don't know if he is for this, like if you had to like shave, you have to like shave your head for this role or something. I'm assuming not, but it's just to make him look more bald. I find that Interesting, yeah. But I didn't realize how kind of a little bit skeletal his face already is supposed to be. It almost makes it look like his human skin is a mask in itself, and like the mask is breaking. What I mean by that is, you see on his face, it's like around like his left cheek, and I think a little bit on the right ear too. It looks kind of like these cracks or like an injury or something. Which I think part of his ear is missing a little bit, and there's like a weird lump on like his forehead. I'm having to like click around quite a bit to just get like different angles. I'm trying to see what the makeup looks like. But my favorite detail that definitely matches the like gross, gruesome vibe that I was really looking for is that hold on. Sorry, I'm still not getting the right angles of this. The left, or like from what I'm looking at the screen, so it's probably not right, side of his head, there's like these weird like cracks or something, and then there's something white, like it's a different color. At first I thought it was more of a skin, and then there's pink, and I realized like, holy shit, his head is partially like cracked open, basically, and it's the skull exposed, and then literally a little bit of his brain is exposed. It's not in a way, you know, because it all has to be very flat to like fit in his head as like a makeup thing or something, where it's not thankfully like hanging out kind of like how eyeballs can hang out of people's skulls. But the fact that like his skin is so removed in that spot, like literally like bam, there's this fucking skull, and then the brain is coming out of it, that's like kind of scary. Like, not in like a gross way of like, damn dude, how do you live like that? Like, no wonder. I can imagine why he like screams every time his mask and his like wig is removed, of like his head is being exposed to light. I thought the wig, I just assumed was for like vanity reasons. He's trying to like trick Christine. Obviously he doesn't want to walk around looking like this, but it's probably also for comfort reasons to have that side of his head. I mean, I'm assuming you can probably live with part of your brain and your skull exposed like that. I don't know, but you know, because they always refer to him as like he's been deformed since birth and stuff, or calling it like a deformity and not like an injury or something. That he's just always been like this. And you know, the makeup and stuff between different adaptations and movies and whatever is all like very dramatically different. Like, I think in like one of the like the oldest version of like the movies and stuff, I think that's the one where he looks more skeletal, where he's like missing his nose. I still need to watch that one, actually. I'm thinking of doing it. And then in the movie, you know, it just looks like a bad sunburn. Though I do like with the movie that his eye looks kind of weird. Like, it looks like it's going to pop out of his head a little bit. And I wish there was something going on with the eyes here that could have been cool. Actually, his eyes are fine. Like, there's nothing around them or anything. But I mean, it also works because he's like very expressive with his eyes, so you do kind of need to be able to see both of them at once. But yeah, his brain coming out of his skull is so cool, honestly. Okay, so most of my notes from here on are just like the last like 10 minutes of this, and or of this musical, and just like little motions and things. Like when Christine is trying to sing to the Phantom of how, you know, the line of like, it's not your face that's distorted, it's your soul. It's kind of like that in denial thing I mentioned, where he's like trying to fix her veil and not really listening, and she actually has to grab his wrist to like force him to pay attention. And he's like, I notice he kind of fidgets a lot too with his hands, but especially here, I think it's like when he's kind of nervous, it's like a tick almost. And then he shakes his head a little, like he refuses to believe her. And I'm wondering how that scene would have like played out if she maybe could have convinced him to leave or whatever, if Raoul hadn't immediately interrupted. And then I feel like that also kind of, you know, because the Phantom mentions like, oh, I'm so glad you're here, I expected you to be here. I'm also wondering if it's like okay, good, we don't have to talk about this with Christine anymore. Now I can like focus on this other person and not be in this like, oh, she has me kind of targeted down moment here. And then the part where Raoul begs for Christine to be saved and the Phantom's like taunting and stuff and being like, oh, did you really think I would hurt her? I was always kind of confused with that with the movie. I feel like here it makes more sense because like with the movie, he's not even like holding on to her or anything. It's that she's like behind him and he's sort of blocking her way a little of not getting her to leave, but she could have like jumped in the water or something and like she could have left somehow. Like he's not actually like physically having her tied up or anything. She could just leave and stuff and then rolls on like the other side of the cave. Here it's that he like rolls at like the top of some stairs or something and he's like approaching. I don't think he can see very well, and the Phantom literally like has one of his hands. It's like when you're trying to control your no, I was gonna say trying to control your dog, but no, that's not it. Or like trying to keep someone at a distance or something. It's like the equivalent of like in movies where you have someone hold someone at knife point is basically what's happening. But instead he has like one hand that's pointed towards Raoul of like trying to keep him away, and the other hand is literally around Christine's neck. And I think he does accidentally hurt her. Like he says he doesn't, but I think he does because he has her in like a chokehold and stuff. And that's why he says like, oh, when he lets her go and she ends up on the ground and rolls with her, and he's like, did you think I'd hurt her? Because, you know, he literally was going to. I thought he was going to. But I think he did, because then she ends up on the ground and you can hear her and she sounds like she's grasping for a breath, and Raoul's like trying to like calm her down and stuff. I think she like couldn't actually breathe because that happens, and the Phantom hears her. And then you could see for a second he actually looks down at one of his hands, and I feel like the thought going through his mind is like, oh shit, did I actually accidentally like strangle her a little bit or something? And then he comes back, and it's kind of funny to me, he looks so excited walking back down the stairs where he's just carrying this like red noose. I think the effect for it's kind of interesting too. I didn't notice it the first time because it looks really small, but I think it's like attached to something behind the stage, because then Raoul has to put it on himself and keep it on. But I noticed in some shots it's like tethered to something in the back, you know, to like kind of, you know, to look like it's coming out of like a wall or something. I think that's kind of cool. But I love the expressions where like Christine is singing the line about how she hates the Phantom. It's something along the lines of like, oh, my tears, I used to be like empathetic for you and now they turn to tears of hate. And she says it so strongly and bitterly too. Like she really looks like she means it. And then the camera goes to this shot of the Phantom and he looks completely shocked hearing that. Like that is one of the big eye-opening like moments for him, of that she like hates him now, and you know he obviously doesn't want that. And then it's the big part where they all sing over each other, where I wish I kind of had subtitles. And the thing is, I did have subtitles when I watched the movie, but I couldn't put subtitles on for this. It didn't like give me the option to. I mean, I know I could have just looked up the lyrics and stuff of what they were singing, but it's kind of easier when it's already on the screen as they're doing it. Because they sing over each other and I can't make it all out. I think what the Phantom is singing is the thing that's most clear, but I think that's because he's on like a different part of the stage. Maybe that has to do with it. And then I can't really hear or like make out, like you can definitely hear all three of them. They're all like powerhouses here, but Christine kind of gets drowned out a little bit, and she's the one I have the hardest time hearing, which is a shame because they're all being so dramatic with their acting and everyone's expressions and stuff. You can like where she changes her face between like pleading and kind of anger, especially at one point where she looks pissed and I'm like, what are you saying? I can't hear you. But anyway, it's all just so more dramatic than like with the movie or something, that you can just feel the tension of it. It's really cool. The one thing talking between like this and the movie. With the movie, there's the line of Raoul and the Phantom singing at the same time of either way you choose, you cannot win. And the line for them in that lines up perfectly with each other, like they're singing it together, and it sounds really cool. It's like a chef's kiss moment, but then here it doesn't line up perfectly, and the lines actually I think changed a little bit, which I don't mind. The Phantom kind of drowns out Raoul, and he's also the one that finishes the line first. Like Raoul is saying it kind of slowly because he's saying it like kind of with more emotion and stuff. I like, it's cool, but I feel like not having it timed together kind of, it just doesn't really hit as hard to me. I don't know. And then there's a part that's kind of interesting where Christine is on the floor. I mean, she spends a lot of this on the floor, and the Phantom is like, hold on, I feel like I should be watching this as I'm doing it. Let me see. She's on the floor, and he's like next to her, or no, he's like in front of her actually. Okay, I found the exact shot I wanted. And she sings the line of "I gave my mind blindly," but at that point the song's kind of over and she's the only one singing, like there's no instruments when she says that line. It's to really like get the impact of it, like you really hear it. And then the Phantom softly sings back to her like blindly, like he's realizing, you know, with the things he put her through. I like this angle with the camera too. You can actually, the camera's like in front of the Phantom, so you can see both their faces, and Christine has this look on her face of like being so, you know, betrayed by his actions. And I think this is kind of the moment where it like finally he's kind of realizing more things about their relationship, not to the point where he's ready to let her go, but he's just like, damn, you really did give your mind blindly to me. I almost feel like it's supposed to be like he feels a little bad for what he put her through, but I'm not really sure. Anyway, then I think of just realizing she didn't really ever have a choice. Like, she doesn't willingly love him, you know, she didn't actually want to give her mind to him. And then it's interesting, he just kind of breathes really hard and moves like really close to her face to threaten her about like, oh gosh, I don't remember what the line is, but it's the one of like, make your choice or whatever of, oh, I can't remember, because he says something to her and it's supposed to be a threat, and then he gets up and he tosses the veil on the ground and he's like, okay, whatever, like make your choice, you know, you get to pick something now. Oh no, it's he gets in her face and he tells her like, you're really testing my patience or whatever, I think, just because he realizes she doesn't love him. And I thought the way that was of like them getting in each other's face was interesting, and then she gets to choose. And I always love that her choice is that she shows sympathy for like what he's been through and stuff, and it's the one time she like completely gives him affection, or it's his first time getting like actual affection. His reaction to it is great, where she kisses him, and the whole thing is shot and expressed like really well, especially because the camera keeps cutting between the Phantom's expression, where you could see part of this one side of his face, and just really the look in his eyes as he's like kissing her, and like what he's doing with his hands, and then it cuts back to Raoul, and it feels like the live whatever cam of like a character's reaction to something, where Raoul looks kind of angry, and then when the Phantom gets kissed again, he has his eyes closed and he kind of just looks like, damn, no. It's more funny than anything. I feel like it wasn't really needed. Like, you know, of course he's going to be upset. I wish the camera just stayed on Christine and the Phantom. But I think the Phantom cries. So like she kisses him, and I feel like that's kind of the sympathy part of it. And then she gives him a hug. I like that compared to like with the movie, where she gives him this one big kiss and the camera like twirls around them and stuff, and it's treated as like this big romantic moment for a bit until she's done. But then here it's like she kisses him and he's like surprised, and then she gives him a hug, which I love that choice. I feel like he really needed a hug more than anything else here. And it's kind of sad because she has her arms wrapped around him because like that's what you're supposed to do with a hug, but then he's never been hugged before. He doesn't know what to do with himself, so he has his hand stuck out like a Barbie doll basically, and he doesn't know how to hug back or anything. And I think he does a little bit towards the end of it, and then she kisses him again. I feel like with that second kiss, that's less of like a sympathy kiss and more of a I'm showing you my romantic intention towards you sort of kiss. Like it's like deeper basically. And then he finally, he gets into it. He sort of knows what to do now, where he puts his hand on her shoulders, and closes his eyes and actually just, enjoys the moment. He finally relaxes, and then she pulls away from him. And it only lasts for the bit. There's like a little 30-second like little fanfare, where the orchestra goes nuts there, like she kissed him, whoa. But I like that it's a kiss, it's a hug, and then a second kiss in that order, and really just getting to see the Phantom's emotions there, even though he isn't saying anything. And it's just his eyes and his hands, but it like communicates so much about the character in that moment. It's great. And then it kind of goes back to tension again, where there's these little drums that play. It's like a marching drum type thing, and that's the only instrument. And he actually walks past her after the kiss. I was surprised he didn't try to like kiss her again or something. I think he's just so shocked and is trying to decide what to do, of just processing what the heck just happened to him, where he actually walks past her, and it's kind of almost funny. He goes and he leans against his organ, and you can see him kind of with the way he's doing his hands, like the way you do it when you're like trying to make a difficult decision, where he like looks at her, he looks at Rule, and then he picks up a candle and he walks towards Raoul, and it's his struggle. Like he doesn't say anything and whatever, because he goes over and he decides to free Raoul. He burns off the rope and he tells them all to leave and to go. But I like that moment, how it kind of lingers of like what he has to make a choice now. What is the Phantom going to do? And he keeps looking at Christine as he's walking towards Raoul. He doesn't want to free Raoul, obviously, of like, Raoul has this look on his face that he wants to like fucking kill the Phantom immediately. But he knows this is what Christine wants, so he's willing to do it, and he keeps looking back at Christine. I think also because he knows, he's about to let her go and tell her to leave, and he'll probably never see her again. He has to like decide to himself, like, damn, do I really want to do this? Because he could have just kept them both there. I mean, he couldn't have kept them there forever. That's the thing, is as soon as he lets them go, he hears the mob. So the mob would have come down and would have probably saved them, because he's forced to escape. But like, I like how in that moment it's like he could have forced Christine to escape with them and just left Raoul there to like die or something, so there's still like a bit of that danger. And then from there, his reactions are great. He he lets them go, and I think it's interesting that Christine is trying to leave because she knows of the danger here and stuff, and she's so freaked out by everything, and Raoul's kind of lingering to listen to the Phantom telling them to leave or whatever. I think that's a cool detail. But then the Phantom actually shouts at the upcoming mob of just like, leave me alone at this point, and then he yells at Christine and Raoul to leave and to forget about him. And I think it's interesting because like thinking about it with the movie where he sounds angry, where he's like, go now and leave me and whatever, and he's like singing it and stuff. And then with this, he's shouting at them, but it's in his normal voice. I feel like it's that he's so shocked from the kiss and this decision he has to make. He's like clearly frazzled here, like he's forced to let them go, and at this point, I think he's more concerned about the incoming mob and that he has to escape. He knows he doesn't have much time, so he's like kind of just telling them like, okay, just get out of here at this point. I gotta deal with this shit. And probably trying to seem like he's fine rather than trying to seem like threatening or like get the fuck out of here or whatever. But my favorite part is when he kind of breaks down a little. He's telling them to leave, like it's like something of like forget about what you've seen and the secrets it's like the secrets of the angel in hell. But then when he says the angel of hell part, he sits down by his organ and puts his hands on the sides of his face and just full on screams that line, like not pissed or anything, but it's like the way he closes his eyes and has his hands on his head and like kind of almost in like frustration. And with that, doing that on that specific line of describing himself as like an angel in hell, you really see like it's just kind of about his personal torment of his own existence, especially because throughout the musical he describes himself as like this gargoyle who's like forced to be in hell but like secretly yearns for beauty, for heaven, like for Christine. And his whole thing of like he thinks his face is a problem, and I mean everyone else treats his face like a problem, like Christine's the only one unafraid of him. So he knows he can't go out into the world or anything. He would have to be stuck hiding forever to not like disgust people with his face. So like he probably does yearn for like a normal life, but he knows he can't, and it's that torment and stuff, and viewing himself as like this disgusting creature. So then it's interesting here where he refers to himself as an angel, but like he does earlier too, he refers to himself as like when he's threatening to roll at one point of like the angel of death, but here it's just like the angel that's like trapped in hell, of like the mom's gonna catch him, his torment never fucking ends. But yeah, the way he like screams it just feels so real, and then he keeps screaming for them to leave him, which I think goes even harder. And with him screaming him at that of like, get out of here, like he's so upset, but he doesn't want them, he doesn't want them to leave. He doesn't want Christine to leave. And then he literally, as he's screaming that line, he literally collapses down onto the stairs and just sobs, and it's just so fucking raw. It's easily my favorite moment in like this whole like stage version and everything. It's just done so well. Like this is, I know I couldn't shut up about vulnerability throughout this whole thing, but this is his most like vulnerable moment, of force. He has to part with Christine forever, and he hates it, and this mob coming and all this shit going on, and he just full on is just on these stairs and cries, and then the music box starts playing and he kind of sits himself up and he's trying to sing along with it. And even I like this motion where he moves his hands of like copying the monkey symbols, and so it's like his little kind of hope spot of, especially because it's that one line of Masquerade he always sings of like, Masquerade, hide your face, the world will never find you. I remember when I watched the full Masquerade scene, like when I first watched the movie and stuff, I always thought that line was interesting because it's just these people describing about how that's what masks do, like they hide your face and stuff, and it's just part of the song and whatever. But then you have it here where he sings the little line, and it's that line is referring to him, so the world can't see his face. Now he always has to hide himself. It's just kind of sad. And then man, the part when he sees Christine and she comes back to give the ring, especially compared to like with the movie where like Christine's obviously like a little upset, but she gives it back and then she leaves pretty easily, and like that's it. She doesn't really facially express much with that from what I remember correctly. But here, oh my gosh, she's like put through the ringer here, where he sings to her it's like almost surprising when you think like, oh, she came back to him. He, he has the opportunity to take her with him or whatever, but he's already decided he's gonna let her go, and he's accepted that he won't see her again, and he's fine with it, and he sings to her that he loves her, and it's in like the warmest voice possible, and that's just her breaking point. She just immediately starts ugly crying right there, and she kisses his hand. She can't even look him in the eyes or anything, and the way he looks at her is so soft for once. Like, he's not trying to keep her with him forever or to be controlling or anything. He just looks at her like he really loves her and that he can like let her go and stuff. And then she looks back at him like I think her mouth moves like she almost wants to say something, and the Phantom just kind of nods at her. I don't know if she was gonna say anything back or just surprised to let her go. It kind of reminds me, and it like me, because I was going to say this is just the moment where I just feel like my heart breaks for these two characters. It reminds me of like with Doctor Who, actually, because that was also something I watched as a child, with the specific part I'm about to talk to, where I was like 12, and it was like my first time watching Doctor Who, where Rose and the Doctor, she gets left on the beach in the parallel world and stuff, and he's forced to let her go and stuff, where he's like, it's the part where he's about to tell her that he loves her and he isn't able to or something. It gives the same vibes of that, of like where they could confess their feelings here, but I feel like the Phantom gives her this little nod, not just as like a go away, it's okay, I'll be fine, but also like maybe kind of like a I know what you're going to say, sort of like you sort of probably feel the same, and it just that kind of shit just hurts, like even after all the things, and her reaction is so strong too, like ugly crying, like she does not really want to leave him, but it's also probably like she feels probably just terrible for him and everything. Like after all the things he did, where she did genuinely get angry when she felt betrayed at him and stuff, and there was so much of this musical where she's just terrified of him, and then for her to react like this, I feel like I really do think she cared about him in some way beyond just feeling sympathetic towards him. There was some feeling towards him that was real. I really do. And then she sings part of All I Ask of You to the Phantom, and that also just kind of hurts, where she looks back at him and she sings it. I don't know if he can hear her at that point. And then Raoul shows up to like take her, and he sings the part back, and then Christine, they finish the song together. It's kind of the moment of like, she's sort of singing her feelings to the Phantom, but then ultimately has to go with Raoul to be able to leave and stuff. And I actually read something about that, where I think in like older versions of the musical, they don't have that part of her singing that little reprise to the Phantom. I think for this, it was supposed to be added in to connect it with the sequel musical, which, oh gosh, I have to talk about that at the end of this, though. I've changed my mind about something with it. Anyway, but yeah, that part hurts even more. And then I like how with the wedding veil at this point, the Phantom, it kind of represents his feelings towards Christine, where she leaves and he clutches it with the ring and I think gives it like a kiss or something, and then he finally puts it down as if he's letting her, and then so he can escape, like letting her go, knowing he'll never see her again. And that's part of the reason I'm also angry that like technically a sequel exists where they see each other and they're like way more closer, because I thought this ending was fine. Like it's bittersweet for both of them, like he doesn't want to lose her and stuff, but he like accepts it and then has to go, and that's it, and they just part ways forever, and it's such a strong moment. So then to have a sequel where they inevitably see each other again and they also have like a child together is kind of weird. I feel it kind of ruins it a little. But anyway, then there's this thing that's really cool where the way to leave, like in the movie he smashes all these mirrors out of like anger, and then he just steps through one of them and he leaves or something. But then in this, he has this throne and he sits on it and he covers himself in a sheet, and it's such a weird thing where like it's really cool though, where he's covered in the sheet and Meg comes in and she sees this person shaped sheet, like and she's probably thinking like, oh, there he is, he's under this sheet, and she lifts it up and you know it's like a normal sheet too, and he's not there and his mask is there, and you're just like I would know that the back of the chair is probably some kind of curtain that he steps through and he leaves. What I'm wondering is how the heck did the sheet, like, it doesn't seem to move or anything, like when, you know, he's probably actually leaving. It stays in that person-shaped shape until she picks it up and she sets it down, and it's, you know, the shape is, it's like a ghost, like if you removed a sheet off a ghost or something. I'm assuming maybe it's like some kind of like wire underneath or something that's keeping the sheet up, but it is the one thing in this that felt like an actual like illusion, where I was just, in the first time I watched this, I'm like, and I wasn't really thinking of it, I'm like, wait, what happened? How the hell did he like actually pull this off? So that was cool. And then she picks up his mask and that's it. Anyway, then because it's the film 20th anniversary version, there's more stuff at the end where I think like Andrew Lloyd, because that's the thing, the musical itself, with this, it's 2 hours and 8 minutes, but then with the full film thing here, it's 2 hours and 41 minutes, and I thought, damn, I don't remember this musical being 3 hours. And then I realized the last bit of it is all performances where Andrew Lloyd Webber pops out of nowhere. I remember when I read the Letterboxd reviews, it said something like Andrew Lloyd Webber jump scare at the end to announce the concert, where he's probably says some stuff and then there's singing. I didn't actually watch it yet. I wanted it to be part of the way to get myself to watch this again and to make this review, was like, okay, that means I'm technically not done, where I'd have to go back, and I still haven't done it at the time of this recording. I'm actually going to go eat lunch, but yeah, I'm not including that in the review because this is just, you know, it's just the performances and stuff. It's probably gonna be great. I don't know who's gonna perform, but I'll find out. But yeah, this was fucking amazing. It's just crazy to me because, like, if I had just seen, you know, the non-anniversary version of the stage musical with whatever cast and whatever, I'm sure it would have been good. I'm sure I would have enjoyed it. I'm sure I would have immediately said, yeah, this is like anything's probably a billion times better than the movie. In terms of like only the original story. I'm not talking about the sequel here. But the fact that it's 20th anniversary version, that this is like the first time I properly get to experience the musical, and it's the version where they're like pulling out all the stops, they have these big screens, they have freaking 200 cast members here. That already makes it so good that the high bar is at past the ceiling for this. That was just an incredible way to finally properly experience the stage version. It also helps that, like, since I'm not watching it live in front of a stage, you know, where people are far away and you can't see them, because I would not shut up about facial expressions and hand movements, and oh my gosh, that only comes across when you're watching something like this, like a pro shot where there's multiple camera angles, there's like close-ups of their faces and of all the little important details and shit that just, oh my gosh, gives so much more meaning. Because I feel like without some of that, I feel like Christine and the Phantom sort of relationship would not have hit as hard, or I feel like I would not have felt as sympathetic to him as a character. So to be able to have that's why I love when I can like find pro shots of things, of like the professional recordings there and stuff, where it's like you get all those angles and all those whatevers and stuff, and it's and it's great. Like I've watched some, like there's some on YouTube of Into the Woods, for example, that was like I think posted by some theater company, and getting to have that. I need to rewatch Into the Woods, actually. That's one of my favorites. But yeah, just having that is great, and that's a great way to experience this. And it's just so fucking good. I mean, of course there were things I did slightly complain about or whatever, but it wasn't even really complaints. It was more of like things I preferred in the movie, or that's like its own separate thing, you know, or little things that I thought, that was an interesting choice. I don't think there was anything in this I like properly like hated or disliked. I thought the acting, you know, it's great with the singing, like compared to the movie. I mean, I have listened to the original cast recording, and that's good too. I think there's some songs in that, you know, and some songs in this that I personally have like preferences for between those versions and stuff. But the singing here was great, and to be able to see it, and you know, it's like experiencing this musical the way it's supposed to be is the way I could sum this up, which was like, this is already my comfort musical, but with having that, it just elevates it to where it's just fucking amazing. You know, the singing was great. The acting, especially for, you know, Christine and the Phantom, just blew me away, obviously. But I especially love just these two actors, specifically for Christine and the Phantom. I mean, I don't know how they actually are, like IRL or whatever, are their relationship to each other in terms of being like co-stars and stuff. But here, through their characters, I felt there was like a real chemistry to it that just worked so well that, I mean, of course I want to watch both of them in like more musicals and stuff. I haven't seen them in anything before, but just they worked so well together. And I did read the Wikipedia page. I don't remember for which person, but I read one of the Wikipedia pages where they are in other musicals together, which is awesome. Apparently there's one for The Secret Garden. I need to see if I can find it, because I love the 1993 Secret Garden movie. I just love to see more of these two together, which kills me to say it, because I found out that Love Never Dies, the Phantom of the Opera sequel that everyone hates, that I was determined not to watch, apparently with the original version of it, these two are together again playing Christine and the Phantom. And now I'm just like, fuck, technically I would love more of them. I mean, I'd love to see more of them together, but specifically playing these characters, and the fact that I get that. And apparently they did it before this like 25th anniversary performance of them, you know, doing the original story. And I'm just thinking like, fuck, you know, like I'll get to see them together again. I know musically it's probably going to sound amazing and everything, and it'll be good to see them together again, but at the same time, I'm just like, I know what the plot is, not completely, but I watched a video on it once, especially with what they do with Meg and Raoul. I think are the things that make me most upset, where Raoul is kind of like a complete 180, where he ends up being like a really shitty person, and Meg is, I think, just the villain of this, actually. Or I'm just like, I'm not ready for that character assassination of anyone, but especially because here I was saying like, oh, like Meg is kind of like Christine's bestie, and how, you know, she doesn't really have too big of a role. But, you know, I know I did the monkey's paw thing where I said, damn, I wish Meg was a little more involved in the story of like, she seems curious about what's going on in the Phantom, but then with the way it is with the sequel, I'm like, no, not like this, you know. But I have decided I need more of these two together, these characters. And also out of curiosity too. It's not even like I know it's bad, I want to see how bad it is. It's I'm just curious about the whole thing. I mean, it is written by Andrew Lloyd Webber, you know, I've heard most people say it comes across as like really shitty fan fiction. So it's hard for me going in like where it has all the ingredients where it should probably be good. At least I know musically it better be good. but I'm like, I already know the story's going to be bad, and I know there's things I'm going to get annoyed at and be upset about, to the point where I know if I made a video, I'd probably praise a few things, I'm assuming, but it would mostly just be me ranting, which I might do. So I'm just kind of like, I don't want to, but I'm like, I feel like I should, and so I'm going to put myself through that at some point. But like separately, I'll also see what other musicals these actors are in. I know the actress playing Christine got to play the Little Mermaid, and I'm curious about that because I already mentioned she has like Disney princess energy here as Christine, or that kind of vibe that I love. And I feel like she would make a good Ariel. Honestly, I feel like she'd probably, with the way she played Christine here, I feel like she'd kind of probably fit Belle more. Maybe that's also an appearance-wise things too. She just kind of looks a little bit like Belle, but I feel like she could pull off a good Ariel for sure. So I gotta see that. I think the actor that played the Phantom here was in a production of Les Mis, and I actually kind of hate Les Mis, if I'm honest, because it's just too fucking depressing, which is the point. But I'm willing to give it another shot. And of course, you probably shouldn't be surprised I'm saying like I've never seen the stage version. I've only ever seen the 2012 movie with Anne Hathaway and Hugh Jackman. So we might get this type of video again too. It just depends. I have to like find these things, see if they're like on Internet Archive, or I could like buy a copy or whatever, or there's a recording somewhere. Anyway, yeah, so I'm gonna force myself to watch Love Never Dies at some point. But this was great. I'm glad I experienced it. I can't believe it's from 2011. The fact that I waited this long, and if I hadn't, I probably would have stumbled on it eventually. Or, I've always heard people talk about like, a lot of people have their favorites in terms of people playing the Phantom and Christine, but these two are the ones I hear about the most. So I'm just like, okay, I would have probably checked it out eventually. But I think seeing that YouTube clip where I didn't even know it was specifically them, I was just like, oh, what is this, of like the point of no return or whatever. I feel like that kind of got me into it like a bit faster. So I'm glad I finally watched this. This was amazing. This is going to just be like the definitive version of the Phantom of the Opera for me, viewing wise, the point where this probably will be. I'm still a little curious about watching the movie in French, maybe, or if I like put on the soundtrack and mute the TV volume as I'm watching or something. Not saying the singing is awful or anything, but just like, man, watching this, it's just like, this is the way it's supposed to fucking sound. I still can't believe I'm like amazed, but also I just genuinely loved it so much. And I'm glad it was like a pro shot that's like available, out there. I did look on Amazon. I did see the DVD for this is $8. I am low key tempted to just buy it because it was just that good, and I feel like for how high quality it is, I should be paying more than $8 to get it on DVD. I'm considering it. But yeah, that's my thoughts on this. I know this was like 4 hours long. This was one of those videos that's mostly like less of like, I want to talk about this to YouTube, and more of a, I adored this so much and I want to just talk about I want to just yap about every little detail that I loved. I was kind of like that towards the Raggedy Ann and Andy movie as well, but I don't have the review of that anymore. I didn't save it. But yeah, that's my thoughts on this. I can't praise this thing enough. It was great. I still need to watch the performances at the end. I'm curious about that, who they get for it and stuff, and what they're gonna sing. But for now, I'm gonna go eat lunch. So if you watched this, thanks for watching this, of listening to me ramble. I hope it was at least somewhat entertaining and stuff, and if you didn't and I'm just rambling to myself, it's fine. I needed to get this out of my system. I feel like I can, because I literally watched this like 2 days in a row. I almost never do that. I can like let this go until next year. But yeah, see you for that Love Never Dies review that I'll probably inevitably do. I also want to rewatch there's a Phantom of the Opera movie that's based on the other musical, not the one by Andrew Lloyd Webber. I don't remember who it's by, where the Phantom has sort of a different character and backstory and stuff, and there's a 1990 Charles Dance movie of it that I really like. So I think I'd like to rewatch that. It's also one of those where the Phantom is kind of portrayed as even more like sympathetic and everything, and it's kind of more like sad than anything. So there might be a review of that as well. All right, bye.